The first red flag wasn't the email subject line, exciting new collaboration opportunity, though that alone gave me acid reflux. It was the time. 7:04 a.m., Monday. HR never emailed before 9 unless someone was dead, pregnant, or about to be fed to the wolves. I wasn't pregnant, and I wasn't dead yet. I clicked it anyway, still half covered in cat hair and existential dread, clutching my fourth reheat of Sunday's coffee. Message was syrupy. We'd love your guidance on onboarding a dynamic new hire who will be supporting executive operations. Translation: you're about to eat a turd sandwich with no condiments. At 10 sharp, I walked into HR's glass-walled fishbowl of fake plants and fake-ear smiles. Shannon from HR beamed like she was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. We're thrilled about your new mentee. Meet Kelsey. And in walked her, 20-something, eyelash extensions batting like hummingbird wings, clutching a $3,200 handbag. I'm 89% sure she thought matched her job title. Kelsey, the executive strategy assistant. I did a double take, then a triple, because for a second I thought maybe she was just lost and looking for a brunch reservation. She gave me a limp handshake and immediately started scrolling on her phone like I was a barista, not the senior operations lead who had, no exaggeration, mapped out half the company's logistics infrastructure by hand back when our servers still ran on hopes and duct tape. I'm so excited to, learn the ropes or whatever, she chirped, making jazz hands. I've never had a real job. Isn't that wild? Wild? Try infuriating. But instead of flipping the table and screaming, this is a tech company, not a season of The Bachelor, smiled like a botoxed hostage and asked HR why she was being placed under my guidance. Shannon blinked, clearly unprepared for pushback. Well, you've got such a nurturing leadership style, she said. And since Kelsey will be supporting the CEO directly, we want her exposed to all key operational workflows. You're just the best person for the job. That's when it hit me. She's the CEO's girlfriend. Suddenly, everything snapped into place. The way our CEO, Nate, mid-40s, all ego and Patagonia vests, started taking late lunches, wearing too much cologne, and stuttering through meetings anytime a certain Instagram filter floated past the window. Nate, who once forgot my name during a holiday toast, now wanted me to teach his glorified TikTok star how to streamline logistics strategy. Oh, and here's a brief pause from my slow burn rage spiral. If you've made it this far and enjoy watching corporate chaos unfold like a flaming Ferris wheel, hit subscribe. I'm chasing my first 10K subscribers like HR chases diversity quotas with LinkedIn stock photos. It helps way more than you think. Anyway, back to hell. Kelsey didn't even pretend to take notes. She asked if ops was, short for opportunity. And when I said no, she asked if she could wear yoga pants to the strategy review meeting. The longer I sat there, the more I realized this wasn't just offensive, it was surgical. HR wasn't asking. They were soft-launching my obsolescence with a side of sexual politics and perfume. I said I'd need to review the formal onboarding materials and get clarification from legal about whether this mentorship aligned with compliance standards. Shannon blinked again, this time slower. Kelsey asked if compliance was a protein. When I left that room, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I went back to my desk, opened the onboarding email, and quietly took screenshots, every word, every timestamp, every digital breadcrumb. Then I opened my note-taking app and began documenting the entire conversation. Verbatim, not because I expected justice, because I knew how this game was played, and it was time to start keeping score. I waited a day. Let them sweat, I thought. Let them think I'm mulling it over like a good little cog. By the time the second gentle nudge email hit my inbox with the subject line, just checking in smiling face with smiling eyes, I knew it was time to draw the line. I wrote my reply carefully. Not scathing, not emotional. Just factual. I cited the company handbook, yes, the one I helped write, which clearly prohibited supervisory assignments involving personal relationships without full disclosure and board approval. I flagged the lack of credentials. I mentioned the liability of assigning sensitive operations knowledge to someone with no clearance and no background check. I signed it with my usual closing, warm regards, no reply. The next morning, my badge didn't work. I stood outside the glass doors like a frozen Sims character while the receptionist tried not to make eye contact. 10 minutes later, HR summoned me again. This time, there was no fake plant, no coffee. Just Shannon, silent guy in a tie I'd never seen before, and a folder already sitting on the table. Due to your refusal to cooperate with a reasonable assignment and your behavior during a collaborative opportunity, Shannon read from a paper like a hostage reading a ransom demand. We are terminating your employment for insubordination and creating a hostile environment. I blinked. Hostile? I emailed you. She didn't respond. She slid the folder toward me like I was contagious. I opened it. 1 week's severance. A generic NDA, no exit interview. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding in my throat but my voice calm. You know what's actually hostile? Undermining 2 decades of service for a nepotism project in yoga pants. That earned me a flinch from the guy in the tie. I walked out without the box of trinkets. Let them keep the dusty mug, the extra phone charger, 10-year anniversary plaque they gave me with my name spelled wrong. I still had my spine and my screenshots. The worst part came after, the silence. People I'd mentored, defended, covered for, they barely looked at me. Slack messages went unread, LinkedIn requests ignored. Even Lisa from IT, who once cried in my office about her cat's dialysis, acted like I'd contracted corporate leprosy. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Not until the elevator dinged and I saw her, Kelsey, gliding out in a brand new ID badge, holding an iced matcha and chirping into a headset like she knew what a supply chain was. Oops, she said with a giggle, almost bumping into me. Didn't see you there. No apology, no recognition. Just the scent of vanilla body spray and unearned power. That night, I drank 2 glasses of cheap red and rage-watched 4 straight hours of Dateline. I was halfway through muttering sociopaths always smile when I got a ping on Signal. Not email, not text. Signal, it was from Aaron, junior accountant, nervous eyes, always brought his lunch. Once helped me fix a printer jam so bad we bonded over the trauma. I know what happened was wrong, the message said. Check this out, and be careful. Attached was a spreadsheet, boring title. Q1 contract comp V3. I opened it, half expecting formatting errors and broken macros. What I saw made my stomach drop. Line after line of consultants. Obscure titles, nonsensical departments. But one name jumped out, Kelsey R., next to a figure that made me choke on my wine. $357,400 and 0 cents annually, plus quarterly bonuses, plus performance incentive stipends. No deliverables, no role description, no internal invoice trail. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I got quiet, dangerously quiet, and somewhere in that stillness a memory surfaced, something dusty, half forgotten, buried in a safe folder from a time before all the rot. An old stock grant, given back when the company still cared, when I still mattered. And suddenly, for the first time in 48 hours, I smiled. Because I remembered I never sold, never transferred, never checked. It was 1:43 a.m. when I finally stopped pacing and sat back down at my kitchen table, lit by a flickering bulb that refused to die just like me. The spreadsheet was still open on my laptop, glowing like an X-ray of corruption. Kelsey R., age 20-something, education. Unknown, skills. TBD, somehow hauling in more than triple what I ever made, even in my peak years, even with overtime and bloodshot eyes. Yet bonuses marked discretionary retention. Retain what, exactly? Her ability to breathe near a whiteboard, no deliverables, no audits, no signatures, just a revolving door of euphemisms and HR buzzwords padded with money. There were other names too, people I'd never heard of, strategic analysts, innovation liaisons, culture architects. One was listed as a wellness engagement officer and billed over $220K. Googled that title. You know what came up? A TikTok channel where some guy taught dogs how to do yoga. This wasn't just favoritism, it was decay. I kept scrolling until my eyes dried out. Every row was a bruise, every cell a betrayal. Then I remembered something. Something so dusty and distant I had to dig through 3 Gmail accounts to even find the thread. My stock grant. Back when the company was still young, pre-acquisition, pre-private equity, pre-Nate, I'd been one of the first 20 employees to hit 5 years. As a retention incentive, they'd offered us Class B shares. Not many, and back then they weren't worth much. Just a handshake and a promise of future value. After the company went private, we all assumed the shares were diluted into oblivion. There were whispers they'd been converted into non-voting participation certificates or some other neutered version of ownership. Most folks cashed out when they could, desperate for anything after the dust settled. But I never did. I never signed the conversion documents, never followed the updates. Not out of some master plan, just life. I got busy, I forgot. And now I was wondering, what if forgetting was the smartest thing I ever did? I couldn't trust HR. I couldn't trust legal. I sure as hell couldn't log into the company intranet anymore. But I could trust Marcus. Marcus Benton, former mergers and acquisitions attorney turned reluctant family lawyer after his own burnout spiral. We hadn't spoken in 5 years, but I once baked his divorce paralegal a birthday cake after she cried during a deposition. He owed me. I sent him a message. Simple, straight. Hey, random Q, remember those Class B shares from my old company? I think they might still exist. Can you help me dig? He replied in 6 minutes. 6. I guess insomnia and caffeine addiction are lawyer side effects that never fade. Found the original docs. Still have your sign-off from 2008. What exactly are you looking for? I think I never converted them. There was a pause. Then, holy hell, that's actually huge. I'll check something. I waited, chewing on a pen cap like it owed me money. Finally, another message came in, longer this time. If you didn't sign the conversion and they never formally rescinded the Class B status, you may still hold the original voting rights. And those shares were 3x weighted, which means if they never updated the bylaws properly, you've got leverage. Serious leverage. I stared at the screen like it had grown fangs. Could it be real? Could this tiny scrap of corporate flotsam, forgotten by everyone, including me, be my lifeline? Or better yet, my lever? Check the articles of incorporation, I typed. I want to know exactly what's buried in that foundation. Marcus's reply was instant, already on it. And if I'm right, that CEO of yours is about to have a very bad quarter. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Because for the first time since they kicked me out like a stray dog, something in me sparked. Not hope. Something colder, sharper. Strategy. Marcus called me the next day with the voice of a man who'd found a legal landmine and was grinning ear to ear waiting for someone to step on it. Remember when they went private and restructured the cap table? Well, guess what, he said, practically humming. They missed a step. Legally, your Class B shares were never reclassified. And better yet, the original articles of incorporation were never amended to strip the preferential voting clause. I blinked at my coffee like it had just turned into scotch. Meaning, he said, savoring the drama, each of your shares still counts for 3 votes. Everyone else, 1-to-1, you're a voting hydra. You hold under 9% of the equity, but you control just over 23% of the vote. Silence. Not the stunned kind. The kind where the floor shifts under your feet and suddenly you're above the snakes, not beneath them. Buried the clause and forgot to kill it, Marcus added. That's what happens when tech bros try to lawyer with Google Docs and protein shakes. I laughed once. Just once, short, sharp. Then I went cold, because that wasn't just a loophole, it was power. And now I had a decision to make. I could sue, go public, shake the building and hope the bricks didn't fall on me, or I could do what I've always done, study the wiring. Map the weak points, flip the right switch at the right time. First step, I made a list of every board member still breathing. Second step, I pulled out my old notebooks, yes, actual paper, and started matching them to their alliances, investments, and quiet gripes I'd overheard over the years. You don't spend 2 decades in operations without learning who's loyal, who's self-preserving, and who's one bad headline away from flipping sides. 3 names stood out. Lin Cho, former logistics executive, now an independent board member, who once privately asked me why our DEI numbers dropped after Nate took over. Devin Sandler, angel investor, early round, rumored to have lost his voting leverage after a failed merger. Last I heard, he wasn't happy with how the company prioritized aesthetic hires over performance. Martin Lentz, grumpy, exacting, and fiscally obsessive. I'd once seen him berate the CFO over a $1,200 sushi lunch. If anyone would raise hell over a $357K assistant, it was Martin. I reached out to them quietly, not with rage, not with lawsuits, but with facts. Ellen was first. I sent her a 3-sentence email. You once told me integrity mattered more than influence. I have documents proving misuse of company funds and a board seat imbalance that could damage your reputation if it goes public. I think we should talk off record. She replied in under an hour. Let's meet. Devin came next. I slid a message through a mutual contact, reminding him of the time I personally flagged a leak in his portfolio dashboard that saved him 7 figures. I attached a scrubbed screenshot of the payroll spreadsheet. No names, just numbers. Replied with a single sentence. I knew Nate was reckless. I didn't know he was stupid. And finally, Martin, I called, not emailed, not texted. Called, and I opened with this. Nate spent more on his girlfriend's non-existent job than you approved for the last 2 product launches combined. Click, dial tone. I thought he hung up. Until 20 seconds later, he called me back and said, "When's the vote?" That night, I pulled the original share agreement from my fireproof box, ran my finger over the faded ink. The company thought they erased me, but I was still in the walls, and now I wasn't just coming back. I was bringing the match. By Thursday, the air in my apartment was thick with half-drunk coffee and war plans. My cat stared at me like I was building a bomb out of legal pads, and maybe I was. My phone never left my hand. My notebook had sprouted color-coded tabs. Every time a Gmail alert popped up, my heart kicked like a shotgun. The storm wasn't coming. I was the storm, and people were starting to notice. Ellen met me at a hotel lounge under the guise of reconnecting. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept since the IPO. She stirred her drink like she was mixing cyanide into the ice. "I always thought Nate was a bit performative," she said, sipping her gin. "But this, hiring someone with no qualifications and paying her more than half our department heads." She shook her head. "That's not just tone-deaf, it's negligent." I slid the spreadsheet across the table. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "This real? As real as the buttocks in her forehead," she smiled. "Just a twitch, but enough." I leaned in. "I have the votes, or close. I need one more swing." She didn't answer directly, but she did say, "If you move, I'll vote with you." That night, got a signal message from Devin. Just a picture. A screenshot of an internal Slack thread. One line from the CEO, thinking of formalizing Kelsey's role into a chief of staff position. Want her sitting in on all strategic reviews. I stared at that sentence until my brain tried to crawl out of my skull. Chief of staff, not executive assistant, not intern with benefits, not strategy shadow. Chief of staff. He was trying to enshrine her in the architecture, make her untouchable, codify the farce. And with that, the gloves were off. I called Marcus. "I want to trigger a special board vote," I said. There was a pause on his end. "You sure?" "No, but it doesn't matter. If I don't do this now, she'll have access to confidential strategy decks. Vendor contracts, our roadmap, my systems. You're risking your reputation. If you lose, I lost that when they accused me of being hostile for citing policy. This isn't about winning a pissing match. It's about cutting out the rot before it hits the core." I could feel the energy shifting. Small tremors in the ground beneath Nate's overpriced sneakers. Board members who hadn't responded to an email in 5 years were suddenly available for a quick chat. One even suggested a conference call, off calendar, off record, using a burner Zoom link like we were planning a heist. In a way, we were. Martin, true to form, sent a terse email. "This is getting out of hand. I want a forensic audit. If you've got the leverage to make that happen, do it." They weren't asking me to lead, not yet, but they weren't standing in my way anymore. And I knew exactly what came next. I drafted the motion, worded every line like a scalpel. Request for special board vote. Investigation of financial irregularities related to executive staffing, with immediate suspension of appointments pending review. Attached my shareholder documentation, Marcus's letter, and 3 select screenshots, just enough to whet their appetite without showing the whole playbook. Then I hit send. 5 minutes later, Ellen replied, "I'll back the vote. You have my proxy if needed." 3 minutes after that, Devin, "Whatever happens next, I'm in." I closed my laptop slowly. The pieces were aligned. The current was shifting. And in the eye of that gathering storm, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Control. I didn't leak anything, not technically. I just had a conversation with someone whose job was to listen. Her name was Valerie Chen, senior business correspondent for an outlet the CEO used to name drop like it was his mistress. We met once at a tech conference years ago, back when I was still allowed to represent the company in public without male supervision. Back then, she told me, "If your execs ever start drinking their own Kool-Aid, call me before the hangover." I kept her card, tucked between my passport and an expired Bed Bath & Beyond coupon. Now seemed like the right time to cash it in. We met in the back corner of a bookstore cafe, surrounded by overcaffeinated college kids and the smell of paperbacks no one actually read. I didn't hand her anything, didn't even mention names, just floated a narrative. Imagine a mid-sized tech firm slashing budgets, pausing promotions, laying off staff, I said, stirring my tea while quietly paying an unqualified assistant over $350K a year. No role clarity, no org chart presence, just a relationship with the CEO and a title that keeps evolving. She arched an eyebrow. You're sure? Let's just say I've seen the ledger and the outfit choices. Valerie's pen moved fast. Is the board aware? Some of them, not all, but they will be soon. She didn't press for more. Just asked, would you be comfortable if I run this with anonymized sources? I nodded. Do what you do best. 3 days later, it dropped. CEO's assistant draws $350K amid layoffs. Questions swirl around nepotism, financial oversight. The story went viral within hours. Not Reddit viral. Bloomberg terminal in every CFO's office viral. The company's Slack exploded. PR sent a pre-written, we are reviewing internal processes statement that read like it had been written during a migraine. I wasn't even there. But oh, I felt it. Marcus sent me a screenshot of the CEO's calendar, the one with suddenly blocked off emergency meetings and 4 crisis comms Zooms in a row. He was spiraling, and I hadn't even touched the trigger yet. The boardroom, I heard, was split. Lynn told me the CFO almost walked out after learning the budget cutbacks he just greenlit were being funneled into Kelsey's wellness incentives and executive travel allowances. Devin texted one word, pandemonium. I didn't gloat. I didn't dance. But I did pour myself a neat scotch and listened to Miles Davis while the fire I lit devoured their carefully curated PR image. Because here's the thing about corruption. It doesn't need a battering ram, just a crack, a whisper, a match in a dry room, and I had gallons of gasoline left. That evening, I submitted the formal request for a special board vote. I attached the shareholder clause, the legal opinion from Marcus, and the press article for flavor. Subject line, urgent, shareholder motion, board oversight vote required. I kept the body short. Pursuant to Clause 14.3 of the founding shareholder agreement, and the Class B share voting rights, I am invoking the right to call a special vote of the board regarding the ongoing integrity of executive staffing and associated financial practices. Timing and attendance logistics can be coordinated through my legal counsel. By midnight, 4 board members had acknowledged the motion. One of them added, I want this cleaned up, all of it. The vote was set for Thursday. And somewhere in a corner office, full of leather chairs and shattered illusions, Nate was probably screaming into a stress ball shaped like his own ego. All I did was light the match. Now I was coming with the torch. The boardroom smelled like citrus disinfectant and desperation. Polished oak table, brushed metal water pitchers, a bowl of sad grapes no one would touch. I walked in wearing the same gray blazer I wore the day they fired me, call it poetic spite. My heels clicked like a metronome of reckoning. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. Just took the open chair at the end of the table, the one usually reserved for interns or note-takers. Nate was already there. Tan, too tan, like he'd panic-tanned in a booth overnight to look unbothered. His jaw was tight, and his eyes flitted from board member to board member like a cornered raccoon at a shareholder picnic. He didn't stand. Look who clawed her way back from LinkedIn purgatory, he said, voice syrupy and cracking under the pressure. Here to file a complaint or just relive your glory days. I placed the folder on the table. Smooth, quiet, then opened it. 3 copies of the original stock agreement, Marcus's legal brief, a notarized statement of Class B rights, and just for drama, the laminated ID from my 10th year at the company, back when Nate was still learning how to spell logistics without autocorrect. He snorted, that's cute. But you're not part of this company anymore. You're a spectator, a very bitter one. I didn't flinch. I slid the proof across the table to the corporate secretary, who froze mid-sip of water, squinting at the documents like they were radioactive. I may not be on payroll, I said, cool as the ice in his veins, but I am, legally and contractually, a Class B voting shareholder, with all the rights that come with it, including this vote. Nate looked at the secretary. This is absurd. Class B was phased out years ago. Secretary gulped. Not officially. Not according to the articles. The room shifted. Martin, ever the spreadsheet hawk, pulled the motion document closer. This vote is valid. We're proceeding. Nate stood, hands splayed on the table like he was about to lecture a room full of interns. You think you can just waltz in here, toss around some ancient paperwork, and sabotage my company? My company too, I said. At least 9% of it. Pointed at me like a magician pulling the wrong card. You were terminated. And yet I smiled faintly, here we are. Silence. Then Devin cleared his throat. I vote with her, just like that, like a guillotine dropped in velvet silence. Ellen followed, same. Martin didn't say a word, just raised his hand. Nate's face cracked, a twitch in the jaw. His breath caught like a gear grinding without oil. "You people are making a mistake," he hissed. I leaned back, fingers interlaced. "No, Nate, we're making a correction." He sank slowly into his chair. The first time I'd ever seen him look small, like the suit didn't quite fit anymore, like the role had been borrowed, not earned. The secretary finished marking the votes, looked up, motion passes. And in that moment, in that heavy pause before the next sentence formed, I felt it, not revenge, restoration. The secretary's voice was flat, almost merciful. Effective immediately. 8 is suspended pending an independent audit. He didn't move, no tantrum, no screaming, just the dull realization that the room no longer rotated around him. For the first time since that smug ascent into the CEO chair, he looked regular, just another guy in a suit who flew too close to his own reflection. The HR rep entered 10 minutes later, awkward and rigid, escorted by legal. They handed Nate a single sheet. Short, brutal. Outlined the vote, the suspension, the pending investigation. His lips moved like he wanted to say something, something profound, something salvaging, but all that came out was, "This company needs vision." "Vision," I said, standing, "starts with clarity, not cover-ups." He left the room like a man walking out of his own obituary. Kelsey never made it back inside. Her badge was deactivated before the meeting ended. Retroactive termination. No golden parachute. Same HR that once smeared peanut butter over my personnel file now cited misappropriation of resources and falsified job functions. Her name disappeared from the org chart within 24 hours. Gone, like a smudge wiped off glass. After the vote, the board tried to regroup. Power vacuums always pull, and I knew the next move before they made it. "We'd like you to consider stepping in," Ellen said. "Interim COO, possibly permanent." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just looked around that sterile boardroom, the marble, the LED lights, the carefully curated abstract art, and felt nothing. "Thank you," I said, "but I'm not here to wear the crown. I'm here to fix the rot." They blinked. Devon nodded, and that was enough. A week later, I signed the paperwork for a quiet initiative. Nothing flashy, nothing PR-worthy, just one act with a long half-life. I took a chunk of my shares and transferred them into a protected employee trust. Designed it to be self-sustaining. Quarterly dividends go to career development, emergency assistance, and legal recourse for whistleblowers. Built to outlive me. Built to shield the next poor soul who says no to a Kelsey and gets shoved out for having a spine. I didn't tell anyone. No press release. Just filed it and moved on. But the company homepage told a different story. Nate's bio vanished. No farewell, no tribute, just erased. And in its place, under advisory board chairs, a new name appeared. Operations veteran, early shareholder. Governance advocate, my name, small font. No photo, but permanent. And if you hovered over it, a little tooltip popped up. Return to restore the core. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.